Okay, I want to welcome everyone to Coach's Corner Thursday night. Every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, we are joined by college coach, high school coach, minor, major league coach that will discuss pretty much everything involving youth baseball, high school baseball, and obviously college and professional baseball as well. My guest tonight, I am fortunate to say, played a significant role as a mentor with my oldest son, Kyle. We are from Boston, Massachusetts, so it may be tough for some of tonight's listeners to kind of connect some dots. But, you know, Jeff was kind enough to offer Kyle an opportunity to participate within college baseball. And the biggest purpose for Kyle from a father's perspective was to have a mentor in his life that would allow him to not only gain a college degree, but to become a better part of the business community, become a future parent, which Kyle is to our grandson, Braxton, as well as a leader within his community at his job within a cancer consult nursing facility in Houston, Texas. So tonight's guest is Jeff Willis. He's the head coach, 7-time national champion, LSU Eunice, junior college located in Eunice, Louisiana. Jeff, thank you for joining us tonight, Captain.
Thanks, Walter. Appreciate you having me. Exciting to be with you. And again, I appreciate the kind words, but on the other side of that, I appreciate you trusting myself and our program with your son.
Well, I tell people whenever I get the opportunity, and as we discussed prior to coming here on the recording, junior college now is a much different animal than 10 years ago, 12 years ago. In fact, I would venture to say it's very different than it was 5 years ago. And I know the role that you, as well as the coaching staff at LSU Eunice, played in my son's life as a parent. So I always am spreading the word of LSU Eunice. But when I tell parents, it's simply not a step up from high school baseball. It's as close to big time Division I baseball as you're going to get without being at the Division I level. But my thing that I would like to have parents have a firm understanding on, and you and I had touched on it over the summer. Can you explain to those listeners and those folks that find their way to the recording what's going on within junior college baseball now that you feel is different than maybe as few as 5 years ago?
Well, I think there's several things. One, you used to have 40 rounds in the Major League Baseball draft, and with the COVID year, you drop that down way low, and now we're at 20 rounds for the draft, and then you've got Major League Baseball that's going to bring back the draft and follow, and I think that's a huge piece of the puzzle for junior college baseball. When I first started at LSU Eunice, we did have the draft and follow, so the clubs could draft those players. They retain their rights to a week before the next draft. They could watch the player throughout the entire year at the junior college level against college competition, and then they could sign them or they could re-enter the draft and be drafted again. And I think that's going to be huge, for junior college baseball. I think the professional ranks right now are trying to figure out how do they counter the NIL money. How do they counter all of the things that are kind of going on in major Power 5 conference schools and try to get those guys into pro ball more, but also into a setting where they don't get them locked up for 3 or 4 years at those 4-year levels when they have the ability to play professional baseball, right away. And I think that's a huge piece of it. I think with how many kids that are entering the portal without having to set out a year now, and if I'm at a 4-year school and I'm recruiting, if I'm at a Power 5 school, I'm going after, the top 100 players in the country. And then I've got to look at who's going to possibly enter that portal that maybe an all conference player at another Power 5 school. And might have more NIL money than that institution has. Or I might be looking at mid-major all conference players that might want to move up into a Power 5 type of a situation. So, if I had a son, I got 2 daughters. If I had a son, I don't know how much I'd want them to jump into that mix right now. Just understanding how big of a difference there is when a 22-year-old steps on the field versus an 18, 19-year-old. And that's not saying you can't play at those levels, because you can. But I think you have to get on the field. And I think when you compete for playing time against guys that are roughly your same age, you've got a lot better opportunity of doing that. And then on the other piece of it, you're able to keep yourself available for the Major League Baseball draft every single year that you're in college if you go that junior college route.
Yeah, and I really want you to kind of explain. I get a lot of questions that have just come in tonight, but I also receive a lot of questions via Twitter and email. A lot of families are under the understanding that if they're considering a junior college potential opportunity, that it's kind of like the next step. You know, we had Jimmy Schlossnagel on last week, and he was talking about that biggest jump as a high school athlete is high school to college. And I try to tell parents, especially at your level, Jeff, it's a significant jump to LSU Eunice, to Vanderbilt, to LSU. Could you expound upon that for parents and student athletes that are listening tonight about your expectations as a coach and program with regard to making that jump from a high school player to a college player?
I think, everyone has to understand, everyone thinks everyone works hard. We all think we have a great work ethic. We all think we have a great attitude. And when you get into that college setting, you now are surrounded by like-minded individuals, so it's the 3-hole hitter on the team that's next to you as well. And I know our pitchers, we started our inter squads back at the end of August, first part of September, with some really, really good arms. And they found out very, very quickly that there was no easy outs in that lineup because everybody's 3-hole hitter last year in high school. And so you've got that, but also, I tell people, us being in the southern part of the country, with very, very good climate. I've started telling kids that come to our prospect camps or some of our camps, I ask them this question, and would you go to North Dakota to play college baseball? And that's nothing against North Dakota or the northern part of the country. But when you're in the southern part of the country and a kid hears that, if they hesitate in answering that question, then I don't know if they're going to have the passion in order to play at the college level, because you're talking about up early. You're talking about going to class. You're talking about practice. You're talking about study halls. You're talking about monitoring your diet. You're thrown into a rat race per se, that if you don't have a true passion, a true love for the game, it's going to eat you alive. And a lot of people like things, but you've got to have a true passion if you want to jump into this thing, because everybody is trying to move up levels, and every single player, once they get to college, wants to play on TV and wants to play in the big leagues. But how many of them just talk about it versus they walk the walk? So there's a lot of talking the talk versus walking the walk. And you're going to have to monitor your diet. You're going to have to say no to some guys that want to go out and do some things and have some fun. If that's your true goal, are you really, really going to do what you say you're going to do? And so I think it's a huge wake-up call. I don't care if they come to any college out there. I don't care if it's Power 5, it's mid-major, junior college, Division II, Division III, NAIA. I think it's a huge wake-up call, because I don't think, there are some summer programs that condition their players to know what to expect when they get to that next level. But there's a lot out there that aren't, just because they're rolling the ball out, and it's almost a country club type of atmosphere. And what I mean by country club, it's like the lady that's a member of a country club, and she's 65 years old and she's retired, and all of a sudden she wants to take some tennis lessons with the local tennis pro. And he's 25, he's graduated from college, probably played college tennis, and he's got a real job, and then he's going out to do these tennis lessons to make some extra money, and most of the time it's extra beer money. And so he goes out there, and she shows up 5 minutes late. And he's not going to say anything to her because he didn't have to work those 5 minutes. He's not going to tell her, you might need to hustle a little more, or you might need to get in shape, or you might need to lose some weight, or you could say all the things that should come out of his mouth because he knows it, but he doesn't want to say it because he doesn't want to lose his paycheck. And I'm seeing, all of the college coaches are seeing this all over the place, that a lot of these venues these kids are playing in right now, they've almost become their self-esteem coaches. And not, they're telling them what they want to hear, not what they need to hear. And then when they get in that college setting where, if you're going to play in the Southeastern Conference, you better put up, or you're going, and the next guy's coming in, because so much money's being spent on that. And that's a professional baseball atmosphere. And so you've got to perform, you've got to put your big boy pants on, and you got to be ready to go. And so I think it's just a big, huge jump, no matter what level of college baseball you go into. And my question is, if you could come up with North Dakota, you could come up with something you could think. I say that just because I'm in the southern part of the country, and that's about as far north as I could go. I guess I could go to Alaska. But if kids hesitate in answering that question, I don't know if they're going to have the passion to do it. They like it, but they don't have the passion for
it. If anybody just summed up the world of travel baseball in 1 3-minute dialogue, Jeff Willis just nailed it. And that will, for me, forever be the analogy that I give of the country club. Jeff, I want parents to understand, because you just broached this subject with me over the summer and again before we started here. Can you talk a little bit about your pitching staff? I got a lot of parents that want to come at me, and my son is, hey, listen, my oldest son, Kyle, was 86, 92. Every once in a while, he'd pop a 3, but he was basically 86, 88, didn't work hard at it. But, if he had, I'm sure he would have been a 90, 93 guy. But tell me a little bit about your pitching staff today in the fall of 2022 at LSU Eunice, just to give student athletes and parents an understanding of the talent level that you're dealing with now at LSU Eunice.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are always surprised. A lot of guys are throwing 90 miles an hour now. I can go back 10, 15 years ago, and 88 was kind of that threshold. And you got guys throwing 88, and there's something there. And I mean, we did a pro workout on our first day, and we had 12 guys that were 92 plus. And so there's arms out there that can do some things. Now, our guys, we start our fall World Series tomorrow night, and so I'm excited, because when our guys get here, they all of a sudden get in the weight room, because most of them haven't been in the weight room enough, and it's easy to have passion out there on the field and get after it in your bullpens and your PFPs and as a pitching and that kind of on the field workout stuff. But it's a difference when you get in that weight room, because that's going to be the separator. And we got a lot of guys that don't want to lift heavy, and this you need to have some flexibility. You need to be stretching and those things, but you got to move some heavy weight. If you're going to put on some strength and do some things. But that whole thought process has gotten into the game that we don't want to move heavy weight because we don't want to tighten up. We need to stretch, but we need to be safe. But we've got to move some heavy weight, and so. I think the key for us is making sure we find guys that can have repeatable deliveries, that can throw it over the 17 inches. I'm big on, I don't know if you can teach a guy how to throw strikes. I know there's some guys out there that say that, but I've been coaching college baseball now, I think 23, 24 years now. And if you can't command the zone and you can't throw it over the 17 inches, you're going to have a tough time pitching, because now all of a sudden you bring the big inning and the crooked number into play. And most games are won when you score, more runs in one inning than the opposing team scores in the entire game. And big innings, crooked numbers, they can't happen if you don't walk guys.
Well, I think by and large, my opinion is that most families, student athletes, we're so focused on showcases and tournaments and all of the things that go on through the spring through October. We neglect the strength, the size, the nutrition, the sleep, all of the things that become paramount when you become a college athlete as well as potentially a professional athlete.
And you hit a big piece of it, sleep.
Sleep.
I mean, if you're lifting in the weight room and you're busting your tail in there and then you're not sleeping, then your muscles aren't recovering. And so, all of that has to be taken care of. And I think a lot of times high school players or younger players, they see Vanderbilt playing, they see LSU playing, they see Ole Miss playing, they see all this, and they see the lights and the glamour and all this. They're not seeing what those kids are doing, in the dark when nobody's watching. And I think it's a huge wake up call when they become a part of it, because I have not met a player that has not been blown away by it once they step foot on that campus that freshman, in August of their freshman year.
Yeah, when your feet hit the ground in college, regardless of the level, if you're not prepared to be, it's a business. I mean, it takes a daily discipline, a daily routine. And And I have a question that just came in. I know the answer to this, but can you share with parents and brag a little, because I know you'll hold back, but brag a little. Tell the people that are listening where you, Eunice, you send student athletes not only to professional levels, but all levels of college baseball. Would you venture to say that the vast majority of your athletes that play for you at Eunice do in fact move on to a 4-year college?
Yeah, we've had every single player of ours. This will be my 21st year here. We've had every single one of our players here that have had that opportunity at the 4-year level. We have never had a player that did not have that opportunity after they left us. Now, some of them chose not to. Some of them chose not to, and I mean, some of them went to firefighting school. Some of them went into a med program. Some of them wanted to kind of doing that, but every single one of those players has had those opportunities. 59 draft picks through the years. I mean, we've had the SEC Player of the Year through us. We've had the Johnny Bench Award winner, which is the top catcher in all of college baseball, through us. We've had numerous, I don't even know how many NCAA Division I All-Americans that have been through us. And so, with the draft picks, a bunch of players in the SEC throughout the years, and all those, G5 programs, mid-majors, and all the way to Division II and NAIA programs as well. And, our role is to get the players, develop them, and get them to the next level. And I think a lot of people get caught up in wins and losses, and I'll be, Walter, you know me well enough to know I don't deem our success based on what a scoreboard says. It's more important. I think for the parents out there, it's very important to find programs that are developing them as men, not as baseball players.
Amen.
But developing them as men, because I don't care if you have a big league career for 20 years, you're going to be a husband and father, a man for the rest of your life, and you're going to be professional on something else other than baseball. And I tell people all the time, we don't find out how good our teams are. I don't care if we dogpile at the end of the year, win a championship. We find out how good our teams are when all those kids are being husbands and fathers themselves. And I don't think winning's on a scoreboard. I don't think with winning is how much money's in your pocket, how much power you have, how much fame you have. I think winning is taking your God-given ability and talents that you've been given and developing it to reach your full potential in every single area of your life. And winning's not a sometimes thing. We've all heard that. We've all heard Lombardi say that. But winning's an all-the-time thing, and winning is not with what the scoreboard says, because we've all played games where we played really, really well. We came out second on the scoreboard, but then there's been the games we've played very, very poorly, and we came out on top on the scoreboard. And a true winner is not satisfied with that kind of stuff. And so we don't talk a lot about the scoreboard. We talk about the process, and we've got some cornerstones in our program of the first one is develop. We will develop men, not baseball players. And I've even started telling recruits this: I don't care that much about your baseball career. And those eyes will widen up when they hear that. Those parents, because I know they're only talking to me because of the baseball picture, and I have to stay with me here. But I want them to understand there's a lot bigger picture than this. And let's develop you as a man and what it's going to look like for you to be a husband and father. And then that baseball player is going to work out and be a part of that. And so other piece of that is we'll deserve to win. We want to deserve to win. And I think we all either deserve to have something good happen to us or we don't. And that's all controllable. And as coaches, we're all trying to talk about the controllables out there.
Well, I know as a dad, and I can talk to Kyle's roommates, Cale Jones, Keegan Kratzer. I mean, I see them now as parents, as fathers, as husbands, and it speaks volumes as to the value that you as a coach and mentor and Alan provided to these young men back when they were in their late teens, early 20s. I have two questions that just popped in just now. One, okay, Coach, I'm from New York. You're talking about North Dakota. I want to go to LSU Eunice. How am I going to get in front of a coach at Eunice when I'm way up here in New York? How do I contact you or Alan or any other member of your coaching staff to get in front of you as a staff?
Yeah, it starts out by sending an email, a detailed email, not a form email. My coaches and myself, we receive 15 to 20 correspondence a day. If it's coming from a recruiting service and it's a form email and they've changed out a name and they've changed out a mascot and done that, and you can tell it, and it's sent to 300 people. I'm not reading that. I'm deleting that because you're casting a big net and you're just hoping something sticks. But when we get an email that you can tell it is to us, it's been directed towards us, we're going to read that. If you could have some video in that, we'd like to see that. If you're a pitcher, if you had some radar gun readings as a part of that in the video, so now we can see that for ourselves, not somebody telling us that. If you have a professional scout in your area that you can put down as a reference, or some other group that we might know those individuals because recruiting a lot of times goes off of who you trust. And I tell people all the time, I'll never, if I call LSU, I call Coach Corbin at Vanderbilt, and I called Coach Corbin at Vanderbilt with Javier Vaz, and
right.
Can he play for Coach? He can play for you. The makeup's right. He can play for you. Okay. They sent out a guy. Yep, he can play, and that my word's going to mean something, and therefore tell the truth. Because the other part of it is you might not be for us, but I want to help kids out as much as I can, and I might be able to make a phone call to the guy down the street or somewhere else as well. But don't fib on those types of things. So send an email, detailed oriented. We've got prospect camps. I think we can't get out and watch everybody. Those are opportunities that we get you onto campus. You get to meet our staff. We get to spend the day with you. We get to see your stuff in person. I can tell you there's some of those recruiting websites out there that they'll say the guy ran a 6.6 in the 60, and all of a sudden he gets on campus and he runs a 7 flat. And we're going, the stopwatches don't line up. Or we see radar gun readings, and all of a sudden we get them our radar gun and they're different. And so now we're going to triangulate the information. Okay, we're not going to take just one person. We've got to triangulate that information, put it all together. Some kid told me he was throwing 92 miles an hour and he was using a My Pocket radar, and it's a little different than our gun that's got the spin rates and everything on it. That's the spin rate's telling us something, and we want to make sure we got the best technology. We've got that out there because now those breaking balls are going to play up, and those are things you can see with your eyes, but when you all of a sudden have the technology to back up what your eyes are saying, you can't go wrong.
Well, I always try to tell parents, I get asked probably 50 times a month about recruiting services and so forth. And I will always tell parents and student athletes, it's simply not going to get an engagement with a college coach. They generally know where it's coming from, and you're best served by being accountable for your own, college experience, and send a heartfelt letter to an email to a coach, and have a little idea, have a feel for who you're talking to and the school you're talking with.
Or send a letter by snail mail.
Right. Oh, that's a great thing.
That right there, that's handwritten.
Right.
That's handwritten. I mean,
you're asking a lot.
And we still remember that kid.
Right. And to me, even at the Division III level at the NCAA, when I would get a handwritten letter, and this is way before all the metrics and analytics, it showed an initiative from a student athlete. Okay, at least he knows who the heck we are, and at least he has some interest in our program because he's talking about our majors and our record. He knows my name, etc. Dad is asking, is velocity the only barometer? Are you looking at pitchability? Are you looking at projectability? If somebody is like slightly, let's say in the mid 80s, 85, 87, but has good feel for secondaries, where are they on your radar?
No, they're there. They're there because pitchability. When I've got a kid in my office, I'm trying to figure out if he's shaven yet. There's a lot of things. And I'm looking at Dad. Is Dad got stubble, and is Dad shaving every single day when he wakes up? And the kid is not shaving it once a month. I mean, there's going to be a progression that's going to happen there. But no, I mean, I can think just when you said 85, we had a left-handed pitcher, Ben Bramer, his freshman year, he's left-hander, 83, 86, off the chart work ethic, off the chart attitude, had pitchability, could command the strike zone, could pitch to both sides of the plate, could get the ball glove side, could spin a breaking ball. Changeup was so. He pitched, not much his freshman year. But all of a sudden, some things clicked, and all of a sudden that velocity jumped, and it went to 92, 93. Our first day back his sophomore year, he was up to 95 in the pen. Pitched for us, set our strikeout season record. Went and pitched at Auburn after us, and he pitched with the Nationals in the big leagues a couple of years ago.
So coaches want to know, how do you know you have a Vaz in your program? Do they just kind of stand out right from their freshman year? I guess they're asking in reference to that SEC caliber player, that whether it's Corbs or Vitt or Jay or anybody, do you know like that kind of caliber of athlete right away when they show up on your campus?
Well, some of them you do, but some of them it takes a while. I mean, I could go to Javier. We also had a kid that same year, Rivertown, that went to Dallas Baptist, and I think they were 1 and 2 in the Royals farm system. And that year, one of them hit leadoff, one of them hit in the 2-hole for us, and I think River just set the record for the Royals farm system's consecutive on base streaks in the game setting. And I didn't know when they stepped foot on campus they would play in the SEC. They had to work and they had to get after it. They had very good strike zone discipline. They didn't swing at balls. They were very efficient. They didn't strike out. They had great hand-eye coordination. They had some fast twitch. And both of them played the game faster than what their runtime said. So sometimes, Javier ran a 6.8 in the 60. But if you watched him play in the game for Vanderbilt and steal bases at Vanderbilt, or even for us, he was playing the game like he was a 6'4", 6'5" runner, and because there was instincts there. We've had some guys in the past that have. We had one kid one time, he ran a 6'2", 6'3", but he played the game like he was 6'9", 7 flat runner in the 60 because the instincts weren't there, and so not always do you see that. It takes a while for them to develop, but they have to have the work ethic, and they've got to have the right attitude in order for that to happen.
Well, I'm just going to ask you for 5 more minutes because you just touched on 2 topics that I think are critical for parents to have a really better understanding as to what's really going on with regard to our sport from the professional level to the college level. And I don't want to take a deep dive into travel ball, but we talk about instincts. Can you kind of just tell me your opinion when you're out recruiting within the summer circuit, I guess we'll call it? We don't really see a lot of that scoreboard competitive games. It's like we know we're only out here for an hour and a half, 2 hours. I'm really trying to get my reps and look at me kind of thing. Do you think the travel as a whole, not as an individual teams, do you think it's slightly become watered down and less competitive, less about the we and more about the me? I'm just talking in general, not any specific.
Yeah. I can give you several specifics. I traveled to watch a kid and a team play one time, and they lost the game with a ball that was hitting the gap, and it should have been a double cut tandem relay, and it did not happen. The ball goes over the cut man's head, and it's in no man's land. The guy goes all the way around the bases it wasn't an inside the park home run. Somebody screwed up. It should have been a double, and it wound up being a home run, and they walked it off. And I thought to myself, the kids are going to come off the field. The coaches are going to gather up the middle infielders and talk about what should have taken. They didn't. They high-fived them. Hey, we lost the game. There was no talk about that. And so, I remember back, 15 years ago, I could in our state here, I could go see four programs, and it covered all of the best players in the summertime. And now it's watered down, and it's how do you get out and see all those different teams now when all the best players now are spread everywhere? That's very, very tough to do that. And there are some that are doing a very, very good job. There's several in our state that are doing a very, very good job, but then there's some that are around the country and that are just money grabbing, these kids and doing that. And I can tell you, Walter, I'll tell you this, when I show up to watch one of those games, you can tell when someone's talented. I want to see what those kids are doing when they're not playing. I want to see, and I'll give you this specific, what myself and Coach Aurier, Alan Oregon, our pitching coach, this was several years ago. We drove 4 hours to watch a high school game in the springtime. Really good player. And I make sure I don't wear our stuff. I don't wear something with our logo on it. I don't want someone knowing because they'll play different if they think somebody's watching them. And I want to see what they're going to play when they don't think anybody is there. And I try to get as close to the dugout as I can because I want to hear. I want to hear what those kids are saying. I want to see their mannerisms. I want to see if they are team guys. And so this kid was on. He hit and he got on base. He walked. The next guy comes up, hits a home run. And so he was on first base. They jog around. He didn't even wait at home plate to high five his guy. He's going into the dugout, and I hear him say, "I call that seat there." And instead of, he stood at home plate, high fiving the guy that drove him in, and then getting over there and high fiving the rest of his teammates and celebrating with his team. He was more worried about trying to get the best seat to sit down in the dugout. So I guess he was too tired to stand up and root for his players and be a team type of guy. And I looked at my assistant coach and said, "Look, we're gone. We're gone. He can't help us." He winded up signing at an SEC school. He was drafted out of high school. He was cut the next year at the SEC school. He went to another junior college, didn't pan out there, and was out of baseball. And he was drafted out of high school, and he'd gone to an SEC school. So he had the talent, he had the ability, but he didn't have the want and the desire, and he didn't have the team values and the coreness of what it takes to be a selfless type of teammate that's required if you're going to reach your full potential. And so I want to see how do they get on and off the field. I want to see how they interact with their teammates. I want to see how they play catch before the game. That's going to tell me a lot. If they're going out there and they're just warming up and they're not moving their feet and they're just going through the motions, there's not going to be much passion, because that's an opportunity. You're either getting better or you're getting worse during that time.
Well, I can tell you, I'm getting a whole list of people that are asking me, "I wish I could play for this guy. I wish I could play for this coach." And a couple of questions have come in, and I know that you're humble and you're not going to answer this. And I want to answer this succinctly for a couple of people that have asked. How can a coach of this magnitude and level with the record and the resume not be, in the professional coaching ranks or Division I coaching ranks at higher levels? I'm going to tell you right now, when Jeff Willis tells you he's trying to raise men, he's not just saying, it's not lip service. The other thing is he's immersed in this is his program. He has children, 2 daughters, his wife, they live in the community, a director. This is a coach that is the epitome of the word mentor. This is someone that you remember when you're 50 and you say, remember Coach Jeff, remember Coach Willis. And so if you're a parent or a student athlete and you don't end up going to LSU Eunice, you should have listened very closely to the message that Coach states clearly. And we're not picking on travel baseball. We're not picking on coaches. We're not picking on athletes. You have to hold yourself accountable, and you have to make a decision. Are you going to be a we team player, a part of a program, or are you going to try to be a guy on an island? Because those guys end up like the SS Minnow, shipwrecked, and you don't hear from them again. So I want to, Jeff, as always, I know when people ask me, when are you going to have Coach Willis on? I know it's the fall, so I appreciate you taking the time. I know we got a little purple and gold World Series going on, and I appreciate you taking a night and spending it with me and with all of us. So I say thank you again as a parent for everything that you've ever done for both of my boys, not just Kyle. And I appreciate your time, and I look forward to speaking with you again into the spring when we can kind of talk a little bit about in-season college baseball.
Sounds good. Hey, Walter, thanks again, and I appreciate what you're doing for the game and everything that you're trying to do to educate people. I can tell you this. The big man upstairs is not going to ask me how many wins, how many championships we had, and he's not going to ask you how much, he's going to ask us what kind of impact did we have on the people that are around us.
Well, I know it's from your heart. The parents that ask me, so I appreciate everything you do for the sport and the game at the club. That's taken the time to listen to us tonight, specifically gaining all of the insight and knowledge from Coach Jeff Willis, LSU Eunice. I want to ask anybody, if you have a question, a comment, a concern, if it pertains to Jeff Willis, you can reach him on Twitter. What is that? Coach J Willis? Is that what we got?
Yeah, Coach Jeff Willis.
Yep, Coach Jeff Willis on Twitter. Obviously, you can have his email. Share with your everybody your email address.
That one is jwillis@lsue.edu.
Okay, and I'm going to put that in the description. Be sure and subscribe to the channel. It helps us grow. It helps create an awareness. We're going to be doing this every Thursday evening for the duration of 2022 and well into 2023. I'll have Coach Willis on in the spring. Coming up next week, we have Mike Baxter, recruiting coordinator at Vanderbilt University. He'll talk about Vaz and a few other athletes at Vanderbilt. We do it at 9 p.m. Eastern. Follow along here again at Baseball Lifer on YouTube, Baseball Lifer 11 on Twitter. Until next week, enjoy the World Series. And Jeff, thank you again.
Thanks, guys. Thanks,
All right,
Walt.
Captain. Thank you, bud.
Bye-bye.